Hey everyone, it's Rye. I'm bringing you part 2 of my Learning Lekmod beginner series. This one's going to be focused on picking a tree. One of the most important decisions you can make in the entire game is the one you make on turn 11 or turn 15. Uh, it dictates the outcome of your game. It dictates what you can do, how fast you have to go, what opportunities you have to take advantage of, what options you have later in the game, determines what wonders you have to go for, what tech path you should do, everything. So picking a social policy can probably be one of the hardest and most important decisions, and a lot of players get it wrong. And hopefully this gives you some idea on what you can look for and what you should do. That being said, let's just jump right in. Hopefully this gives you something tangible to hold on to, something you can look at repeatedly when you're making your decision. Okay. So here I made this little chart to kind of help visualize it. You'll see on the left the 4 trees and kind of, the cities required for them ish. If they're noob friendly or not. If you need a monument to build if you need a monument early game. How many workers per city on average, and then how many luxes you should be settling for each city. Okay, so the first one is going to be tradition. Tradition is seen as the noob tree, the new player tree. It's very new player friendly. Most new players, when they start playing Lek, should definitely stick with tradition. It's the most consistent. It's the easiest to get the hang of. A lot of it is because it kind of plays itself. There's a lot of free benefits that it gets, free monuments, free aqueducts, a lot of happiness in the capital. But it also has the potential to be the hardest snowballing tree, and the highest high rolls could occur on this tree. So it's very low floor to get into. There's a very low barrier to entry, but it's a very high ceiling. So if you can master tradition, you can always be relevant in the game. So that being said, let's just jump right in. On tradition, you're going to look for about 4 cities. Because you get free monuments in those cities, you don't have to settle them for really strong first and second rings. You can think about your third ring because you'll realistically grow there. They're very new friendly. As I said before, you get free monuments, you get free aqueducts. You don't need a monument. So realistically, you're going to be picking this tree or deciding or leaning into this tree rather fairly early, right? Think turn 6. After 2 scouts, you're going to start building a worker. Right? So in that case, you're almost saying, yeah, I'm going to play tradition on turn 6. So having a good idea of what your land looks like before then is really important. On average, your workers per city are going to be about 2 to 2.5. And when I say workers per city, I mean by turn 30, 35, 40-ish, you should have this many workers per city, right? 2.5 seems a bit high, and that's because of civilizations like Aztec, like Khmer, stuff that grows really fast needs a lot of workers because your pop's constantly going up. And then luxes per city, think about 1.5 to 2. This isn't very strict, depending on your civ. Maybe it's a happiness civ. Maybe you can supplement something with religion, right? There's a lot of ifs, but in general, you want to do about 1.5 to 2 luxes per city. That doesn't mean you can't settle something with only one lux. That's meaning you're regional, right? You can definitely do that. Just try to kind of make up for it somewhere else. So if you settle a city with 1 lux, maybe you try to settle 2 others with 2. Or you try to settle 1 with 3 somewhere else, right? Just make sure it kinds of balance out. Liberty, another fairly noob-friendly civ, noob-friendly tree. There's a lot of free stuff, right? You get a free golden age, you get a free great person, you get a free worker, you get a free settler, you get 1 hammer for every city, you don't pay maintenance on your monuments, right? It's an incredibly good tree for having a fast game and supplementing maybe bad land. On average, you want to plant around 6 to 8 cities total. You do want a monument. This is the tree that wants a monument more than anything. You have to be rushing straight to that settler policy as fast as you possibly can. Workers per city, on average, you only need one. That includes, shout out to the king, that includes if you have pyramids or not, right? With pyramids and the Liberty worker policy, you can one-turn roads, you can get faster improvements, you can one-turn chop. If you don't have pyramids, maybe this is 1.5, 1 to 1.5, but in general, 1 is probably fine. Lux per city, 1 to 1.5 is plenty. A lot of times I'm settling cities on Liberty with only 1 lux, and that's totally fine. Just make sure you get your trades out. Honor, I have a different guide if you haven't seen that. I have a whole honor series. So if you're trying to learn honor specifically, I would definitely recommend watching that. But in general, honor is about 6 to 8 cities. Is it new friendly? Absolutely not. This is the hardest tree to learn. It's the most counterintuitive when you know the rest of Civ. It can have incredible snowball potential. It scales incredibly well late game, but it is very, very difficult to learn to play. Not as hard as Piety, but it is incredibly taxing to new players. You'll fall incredibly far behind, and would not recommend playing Honor. Do you need a monument? Yes, you need a monument. You want to rush that that warrior policy for tributes. Workers per city is about 1.5 to 2. In the very early game, this should be about 3 because you're looking for a lot of worker steals. I'm talking post capturing city states. So think turn 50 or 60, you should have around 1.5 workers per city. But before that, think turn 45-ish, you should have around 3. Unless you're archering city states, then you can kind of stick with that 1.5 number. But for the most part, you want a lot of workers early on honor. You need a ton of workers really early. And I stress that in the honor guide. Luxes per city, 1.5 to 2. Remember, we're taking city states on honor, so because of that, we need to supplement the fact that they only have 1 lux, and oftentimes it's a duplicate lux with another city state we're taking. So we need to supplement those luxes somewhere else. So I think 1.5 to 2. Having that 2 be something in the 3rd ring could potentially work and could potentially make sense, but typically on honor we're settling for first 2 rings. So don't try to get your luxes in order for that. A lot of weaker honor players have substantially bad happiness problems, and it stems from not settling enough luxes or taking city states they shouldn't be taking, etc. And then Piety is the most flexible of every tree. I'd say you could play 2 city Piety, you could play 10 city Piety, but on average you want around 3 to 6 cities. 6, if you're learning Piety, I would say 6 is probably too many. Maybe stick to 5, but you could do 6. You could totally make 6 work. If you have the land for it, definitely go for it and see how it goes. But is this a new friendly civ? Absolutely not. This is probably worse than Honored when you're learning. I see experienced players that are really strong on Tradition and Liberty not know how to play Piety. So I would stay away from Piety as a whole. You need about 1.5 to 2 workers per city, right? You don't get any benefits, and you need a lot of tiles because with Feed the World, you're going to be growing a lot early. Luxes per city it depends, right? If you're playing 3 city Piety, you're going to want to settle more. If you're playing wide Piety, you only need 1, right? And you're going to supplement that with, maybe religious center and pagodas or something, some happiness religion, right? So there's a lot of different things you can do with Piety. The flexibility makes it really appealing to people, but realistically, it's not great for when you're learning the game. Yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. The last thing I'll say is a lot of this is based on land. This is pure land, what's here. But civs dictate a lot of different things. So I've put a list here. This is very, very basic, and don't take this as face value, but in general, some civs lean very heavily in certain ways, right? If you're playing Aztec, you're probably playing Tradition. most of the time. Um, it grows too much to play Liberty. Honor, it can be really strong in, but again, the growth is going to be insane. You're going to have crazy happiness problems. Timorous is another fantastic tradition civ. When you're thinking Liberty, America obviously comes to mind as a fantastic option. Belgium with the happiness, with the plantations, right? It's really, really strong. Honor, there's a lot of honor-specific civs out there, but if you have someone like Macedonia, you're going to be pressing honor every single game. But that's not to say Jerusalem can't play Liberty. In fact, Jerusalem's one of the best Liberty civs in the entire game. But it definitely leans honor. It's definitely not going to be thinking when you load into Jerusalem, yeah, I'm going to be playing tradition this game. If that makes sense. Like, you're always going to be building a monument on Jerusalem. So, and then piety, I think piety is almost the most restrictive in terms of the civs. You have something like Vatican and Madagascar, which can literally only play piety. So, in a way, I would kind of avoid playing them altogether because you're forced to play one tree, and that tree is extremely hard and volatile in terms of what outcomes you can have. I would stay away from piety as a whole. The piety civs themselves are fairly weak because they require good play to be good. But something like Liberty civs or tradition civs are generally all around very strong. They generally lean one direction, but that doesn't mean they can't play anything else, right? Some of the best games I've ever seen be played are on tradition Belgium. So, don't take this as fact, but this is just to say, if you're playing IU bids, a lot of the time you're going to be thinking honor or liberty, right? So just something to keep in mind when you're picking trees. But in general, I will say play your land, not the civ, unless the civ is so powerful on one thing, aka Madagascar, Macedonia, Vatican, etc. So hopefully this was helpful. In part 3, we're going to talk about actually playing the game. This is more of theory and more of what you should be doing and overall general guide. So thanks for watching.